Chapter 47. Then Joseph went in and told Pharaoh, and said, My father and my brethren and their flocks and their herds and all that they have are come out of the land of Canaan, and behold, they are in the land of Goshen. And from among his brethren he took 5 men, and presented them unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto his brethren, What is your occupation? And they said unto Pharaoh, Your servants are shepherds, both we and our fathers. And they said unto Pharaoh, To sojourn in the land are we come, for there is no pasture for your servants' flocks, for the famine is sore in the land of Canaan. Now therefore, we pray you, let your servants dwell in the land of Goshen. And Pharaoh spoke unto Joseph, saying, Your father and your brethren are come unto you. The land of Egypt is before you. In the best of the land make your father and your brethren to dwell. In the land of Goshen let them dwell. And if you knowest any able men among them, then make them rulers over my cattle. And Joseph brought in Yaakov his father, and set him before Pharaoh. And Yaakov blessed Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Yaakov, How many are the days of the years of your life? And Yaakov said unto Pharaoh, The days of the years of my sojournings are 130 years. Few and evil have been the days and the years of my life, and they have not attained unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers, and the days of their sojournings. And Yaakov blessed Pharaoh, and went out from the presence of Pharaoh. And Joseph placed his father and his brethren, and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph sustained his father and his brethren, and all his father's household with bread, according to the want of their little ones. And there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, that the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan languished by reason of the famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt, and in the land of Canaan, for the corn which they bought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. And when the money was all spent in the land of Egypt, and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph, and said, Give us bread, for why should we die in your presence? For our money fails. And Joseph said, Give your cattle, and I will give you bread for your cattle, if money fail. And they brought their cattle unto Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for their horses, and for their flocks, and for their herds, and for their asses. And he fed them with bread in exchange for all their cattle for that year. And when that year was ended, they came unto him the second year, and said unto him, We will not hide from my lord how that our money is all spent, and the herds of the cattle are my lord's. There is naught left in the sight of my lord, but our bodies and our lands. Wherefore should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be bondmen unto Pharaoh, and give us seed, that we may live and not die, and that the land be desolate. So Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine was sore upon them, and the land became Pharaoh's. And as for the people, he removed them, city by city, from one end of the border of Egypt even to the other end thereof. Only the land of the priest bought he not, for the priest had a portion from Pharaoh, and did eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them, wherefore they sold not their land. Then Joseph said unto the people, Behold, I have bought you this day, and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and you shall sow the land. And it shall come to pass at the ingatherings, that you shall give 1/5 unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own, for seed of the field, and for your food, and for them of your households, and for food for your little ones. And they said, You have saved our lives. Let us find favor in the sight of my lord, and we will be Pharaoh's bondmen. And Joseph made it a statute concerning the land of Egypt unto this day, that Pharaoh should have the 5th, only the land of the priests alone became not Pharaoh's. And Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the land of Goshen, and they got them possessions therein, and were fruitful, multiplied exceedingly. And Yaakov lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the days of Yaakov, the years of his life, were 147 years. And the time drew near that Israel must die. And he called his son Joseph, and said unto him, If now I have found favor in your sight, put, I pray you, your hand under my thigh, and deal kindly and truly with me. Bury me not, I pray you, in Egypt. But when I sleep with my fathers, you shall carry me out of Egypt, and bury me in their burying place. And he said, I will do as you have said. And he said, Swear unto me. And he swore unto him. And Israel bowed down upon the bed's head. All right, let's go back up to verse 1. We're continuing, and once again with this period of time when Israel now went down into Egypt. In the last chapter, they took their journey and went by Beersheba and offered there unto the Lord the sacrifices with that to make atonement for. And we'll find that he is leaving his home, leaving his land to go down into Egypt. Egypt is a place of the grave, place of the crypts. He takes his whole house. His whole house, we'll find out, is all those that was with him. The 66, and then we'll find out there was 4 souls already living in Egypt that would join his house. This would make the 70 total. Joseph had gone out to meet him, and they had their reunion there, weeping together. And he instructed them, when he brings them before Pharaoh, how to address Pharaoh and how to explain himself, because the fact that they was herdsmen, poorly, you might say, in the sight of the Egyptians. We're going to pick it up here with Joseph and them. They return to the Pharaoh, and they'll be introducing themselves before the Pharaoh in verse 1. Then Joseph went in, told Pharaoh, and said, My father and my brethren, and their flocks, and their herds, and all that they have, are come out of the land of Canaan, and behold, they are in the land of Goshen. So now, Joseph, he's going to come to the Pharaoh. Joseph, once again, is the one that's going to add to the Pharaoh. Pharaoh is the great house, and he might say represents all the authority of the land. But he goes to the Pharaoh now to tell him that his father, that's the one he was born from, and his brethren, those of similar understandings as he is. Not all of them were born from the same mother, although with their flocks and their herds, that's those they tend over, and the multitudes, the different kinds of them, all that they have. They'll come out of this land of Canaan. That's the land of humility. They are now come into the land or the place of Goshen. That Goshen is the place that draws nearer to, and from among his brethren he took 5 men and presented them unto Pharaoh. So Joseph's going to choose now among his brethren these 5 men. 5 is always a sign of grace, to expect grace maybe. And he presented them to the Pharaoh. Pharaoh, once again, is the great house. And Pharaoh said unto his brethren, What is your occupation? And they said unto Pharaoh, Your servants are shepherds, both we and our fathers. So Pharaoh's going to ask them what they do for a living. What is your occupation? What do you do? And they said to Pharaoh, We're shepherds. We graze cattle. We breed cattle. We take care of cattle. And both we and our fathers. 4. And they said unto Pharaoh, To sojourn in the land are we come, for there is no pasture for your servants' flocks, for the famine is sore in the land of Canaan. Now therefore we pray you, let your servants dwell in the land of Goshen. And they say to Pharaoh, it's to sojourn in the land, to live here, to work here in this place, Egypt, are we come, for there is no pasture, there's no place to feed our flocks. in the land of Canaan because of the famine, because of the lack of substance for the flocks. Canaan is, once again, humility. Now, therefore, we pray you let your servants dwell in this land of Goshen. And now they're going to make the request to dwell there in that land of Goshen. 5, and Pharaoh spoke unto Joseph, saying, your father and your brethren are coming to you. So Pharaoh, now he's going to turn it over to Joseph, because Joseph is the one who has control. We'll find out. He has to get his authority from the Pharaoh, but he has the overall authority of anything else, saying that your father and your brethren there are come unto you. 6, the land of Egypt is before you, and the best of the land make your father and your brethren to dwell. In the land of Goshen let them dwell. And if you know as to any able men among them, let them be rulers over my cattle. So he's going to give them the land of Egypt, a portion of it. It's that place of graves or crypts, or snares, traps, holes, whatever you want to call it. It's in the best of the land, and in the best of that land make your father and your brethren to dwell. And this is where they will dwell. It's in the land of Goshen. Let them dwell there is where they will dwell. Goshen, once again, is that to draw nearer. And if you know any able men among them, let them be rulers over my cattle. Let them tend my cattle, flocks, herds, we'll find as well. 7, and Joseph brought in Jacob, his father, and set him before Pharaoh. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh. So Joseph's going to bring now Jacob, or Jacob. That's the supplanter, that's his father, the one he was born from. And he's going to bring him before Pharaoh. And Jacob blesses Pharaoh. 8, and Pharaoh says unto Jacob, how many are the days of the years of your life? So Pharaoh is going to ask him how old he is, how many days has he accumulated, or how many are the days of your years. A day is a cycle, night and dark. Dark, it should be dark and day is the way it works. This day begins at sunset, and it begins in the darkness, because that's basically where we're all at until we learn from the little lessons we make, and each day represents one of those little lessons. These little lessons accumulate into a year. A year slowly becomes a greater understanding as we age in these periods of our life. A life is the total accumulation of all of it. 9, and Jacob says unto Pharaoh, the days of the years of my sojournings are 130 years. So these little understandings had accumulated into many greater understandings as he had sojourned or worked, lived, experienced, were 130 years. And 100 is judgment. 30 is to complete the law. 3 tenths would be to strengthen it. We'll find out. 30 is for the dedicated, for even the greater understandings. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life. Few and evil, maybe hard, few and hard, because have been the days and years of my life. So he's not had no easy way to go, we'll find out, as a herdsman. And they have not attained even unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers, in the days of their sojournings, because we'll find they had lived to be much older than what Jacob has lived, to experience even greater understandings. 10, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from the presence of Pharaoh. So Jacob blesses once again Pharaoh, and this is more like a greeting to Pharaoh. Once again, that's that great house, and he goes out from the presence of Pharaoh. 11. And Joseph called his father and his brethren and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had commanded. So Joseph's going to place his father and his brethren, give them, show them where they're going to live, basically. He gives them their possession in the land of Egypt. That's the place of graves. It was in the best of the land, in the land of Ramses, or it was Goshen. Ramses ain't going to be alive for about 400 years, and this would probably, or at least 4 generations, I should say. So he gives a little enlightenment on about the era of these scriptures here when they was wrote down, as Pharaoh had commanded. So they got a place in the best of the land. Ramses is referenced because he was a Pharaoh at the time of the Exodus. Once again, Pharaoh commanded it. He was the great house, 12. And Joseph sustained his father and his brethren and all his father's household with bread, according to the want of their little ones. So Joseph sustains his father. He makes sure that they have everything they're going to need, and his brethren, all his father's household, with bread, with substance, will find for the to nourish, keep alive the flesh, according to the want of their little ones, according to whatever they needed for their children. There was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan languished by reason of the famine. There was no bread in all the land. Some translations say in all the world and all the earth, as far it was known at that time of these their understandings, as was all the world, for the famine was very sore. The famine, once again, is for that bread, for that nourishment. It comes from that which you plant today. There's a season that has to grow. Then when there's a harvest that has to be done. Then there's the grinding and everything else that goes with the bread. So you just don't get the bread in one day. It's something you have to prepare for. And this famine was great. It was great in the land of Egypt. The land of Canaan languished by reason of the famine as well. Canaan is the land of humility. It's just before you come into Egypt. 14. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the corn which they bought. And Joseph brought the money unto Pharaoh's house. So Joseph's gathering all the money that was found in the land of it. They was running out of money in the land of graves. They was running out of that price to pay. That's what the money represents here. That which you give, that which you have to pay with. And in the land of Canaan. So money was given out. It was running out. You might say the wealth was drying up. And for the grains, this corn here should simply be a grain. That's what they make the bread out of. And they was paying, people had paid out all their monies. They was running out. They was brought to nothing. And Joseph took all the monies, all the wealth that he was gathering, he took it to Pharaoh's house. But we'll remember they took up all the grain. The grain belonged to the people anyway. As an form to keep alive all. And the grain come from far and wide. 15. And when the money was all spent in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, Give us bread, for why should we die in your presence? For our money fails. And when the money was all spent in the land of Egypt, it was out of money. There was nothing left. There was nothing to purchase with that which is going to sustain the flesh in that place of graves, and in the land of Canaan, the land of humility. There was nothing less to purchase with. All the Egyptians came unto Joseph, the one is going to add to, and they said, Give us bread, give us some substance. Why should we die in your presence? Why should we fail? For our money fails. We have nothing to pay with. 16. And Joseph said, Give your cattle, and I will give you bread for your cattle if money fails. So Joseph tells them now to give up their cattle, give up these which they watch over their cattle, the lesser cattle and these greater cattle as well. That's those that they tend over. And it's just a similarity as well as to lay down those things that you have authority over. We'll find out that's what they're going to be giving up. Their livelihoods, their land, and sooner or later, even themselves. 17, and they brought their cattle unto Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for their horses and for their flocks and for their herds and for their asses, and he fed them with bread in exchange for all their cattle for that year. So they brought their cattle. These cattle really represent their livelihoods at that time. They bring these things unto Joseph. Joseph gives them bread. He exchanges it for the food, exchanges it for the substance. These things for their horses. Horses, something that has great strength, something you can bridle and control. And for their flocks, these things which they led, their herds, these many things they was over, they're like flocks. For their asses, that's those things that carried their burdens, the merchandisings. And he fed them with the bread in exchange for all their cattle for that year. So he acquires all that, the money and the way to make the money, the profits he has exchanged for bread, that substance for the flesh, and for that year, even in that greater understanding, 18. And when that year was ended, they came unto him the second year, and said unto him, We will not hide from my Lord, how that our money is all spent, and the herds of the cattle are my Lord's. There is not left in the sight of my Lord, but our bodies and our lands. And when that year was over, it had ended. That greater understanding, they had given up all their ways to make, to attain the price that would have to be paid for the substance. They came this second year. You can witness these greater understandings too. And they said unto him, We will not hide from my Lord, how that our money is all spent, and the herds of the cattle are my Lord's. There is not left in the sight of my Lord, but our bodies and our lands. So they finally have sold all their ways to prosper, and basically down to nothing left but the land and them. 19. Wherefore should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be bondmen unto Pharaoh. Give us seed, that we may live, and not die, and that the land be not desolate. So now the Lord has brought a great famine upon the earth, and we'll find that the benefit from it is going to go to Pharaoh. Joseph is now, they have come before him saying, Buy our land and buy us as well. They're ready to sell themselves and everything, the land, to become bondmen over to Pharaoh. A bondman is somebody that has a price to be paid. Once again, there's a price to be paid one way or another. You pay the price, and these here are going to now be delivered over to Pharaoh as his bondman. They got a price to pay for him. We'll find out. Once in this position, the price just never gets paid off. You might say the interest accumulates faster than you can pay it off. But anyway, 20. Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. For the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine was sore upon them, and the land became Pharaoh's. So once again, Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. He bought that place of graves. He gave it up to the Pharaoh, that great house. And for the Egyptians sold every man his field. They give up all their properties. They give up all that because of the famine was sore upon them. A great hunger was upon them. And the land became Pharaoh's. And that's basically how it happened. So Pharaoh's got control of all the properties now. That's the great house. And these things belong to him. 21. And as for the people, he removed them city by city, from one end of the border of Egypt even to the other end thereof. And as for the people now, he removed them city by city. He took them up. You could say he took them up, mostly like in a recording, city by city, place by place, guard by guard, ones that have guards, from one end of the border of Egypt even to the other end thereof, the whole land of Egypt. That's that place of graves. 22. Only the land of the priests bought he not, for the priest had a portion from Pharaoh, and did eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them, wherefore they sold not their land. But it was the land of the priest now, he bought not. We'll see. The priest had a little portion coming from Pharaoh's house, from the great house. They got their food from Pharaoh, that portion which they ate, that portion which sustained them. Pharaoh, in other words, told them what to do. That's where they got their portion. They worked for Pharaoh the whole time. That's why they didn't have to sell their land. 23. Then Joseph said unto the people, Behold, I have bought you this day and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and you shall sow the land. Then Joseph says unto the people, Behold, I bought you this day. You sowed yourselves in this understanding, and your land for Pharaoh. You sold it over to that great house. And lo, here is seed for you. Here's what you'll plant, and you shall sow the land, and you shall sow the land with that seed. 24. And it shall come to pass at the end gatherings that you shall give a fifth unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own, for seed of the field, and for your food, for them of your households, and for the food of your little ones. And it shall come to pass at the end gatherings, in the day you gather up your harvest, you'll give a 5th part unto Pharaoh. A fifth, that's a portion there, portion of grace unto Pharaoh. You'll pay your tributes to that great house. It's 20% if you want to figure that out. You can witness the law in it. 4 parts shall be your own. That's the work of God portioned out to you. It's for your seed of the field. It's that which you'll have to plant with, and that which you'll have to eat from. And for them of your households, all your children, all those that come after you, and for the food, and for your little ones. That's all the children and everything you have to take care of. You'll get your substance from that which is left. 25. And they said, You have saved our lives. Let us find favor in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's bondmen. And they said, You've saved our lives. The Lord had prospered Joseph before them. For this purpose, I would question whether it was prospered to sell everything off to the Pharaoh and become the Pharaoh's bondman. 26. And Joseph made it a statute concerning the land of Egypt unto this day, that Pharaoh should have a 5th. Only the land of the priest alone became not Pharaoh's. Joseph, he makes it a statute. A statute is kind of like an ordinance. It's not quite a law. And the fact that it requires consent, it requires an agreement to be part of that agreement concerning the land of Egypt, even unto this day, and that's concerning that place of graves, even in that understanding, that Pharaoh should have a 5th, that great house should have a grace in its portion, 20%, you might say, it's to witness the law. Only the land of the priest alone didn't become Pharaoh's. We'll find out. They got their portion from Pharaoh. They kind of worked for Pharaoh the whole time. The priests are the ones that stand before their not gods. 27. And Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the land of Goshen. And they got them possessions therein, and were fruitful, and multiplied exceedingly. And Israel, that's those that contend with the mighty one, they dwelt in the land of Egypt, that place of graves, and in that land of Goshen, a place that draws nearer in understanding, that is, and they got them possessions therein. They acquired things there. They were fruitful. They multiplied exceedingly. Their numbers increased. We'll find out. Not necessarily did they become great and wealthy there, but they did get them possessions there. They lived there. They survived there, 28. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the days of Jacob, the years of his life, were 147 years. So Jacob lives. He's going to remain there in that land of Egypt, place of graves, for 17 years. 17 is 10 and 7. Now the law's finished, complete. That's about the sum of it in the greater understandings. And so the days of Jacob, the years of his life, were 147 years total. He was 130 when he got there, 147. That's the way the math would add up. This would be the understandings of the greater lessons of his life. 147 years, that's judgment. 40 is 4 tens. That's God working there in the law, separating. And 7 years, it will be to finish it, complete it. Sum it up, you might say, for the greater understandings. And the time drew near that Israel must die, and he called his son Joseph and said unto him, If now I have found favor in your sight, put, I pray you, your hand under my thigh, and deal kindly and truly with me. Bury me not, I pray you, in Egypt. And the time was drawn near. Israel wasn't doing too well. The one that contends with the mighty one, he was getting ready to exhale. And he calls his son Joseph. That's the one that's going to add to. And he says to him, If now I found favor in your sight, put, I pray you, your hand under my thigh. Make an agreement with me. A personal agreement. This is that hand under the thigh. It's a little slightly different than the shaking of the hands. It's got a little more intimate touch to it, you might say. And deal kindly and truly with me. Bury me not, I pray you, in Egypt. That's that place of graves. 30. But when I sleep with my fathers, you shall carry me out of Egypt, bury me in their burying place. And he said, I will do as you have said. But when I sleep, that's basically what it is, to go to sleep with your fathers. Those are the ones you come forth from. He says, you'll carry me out of this place of Egypt, that place of the graves, the crypts. More like snares and traps is what it was, and we can see a big snare and a big trap went off down there. He says, but don't bury me here. Take me out of this place and bury me in the burying place of my fathers. That's Machpelah. And he said, I will do as you've said. Of course, we know Machpelah. 31. And he said, swear unto me. And he swore unto him. And Israel bowed down upon the bed's head. And he said, swear unto me. And we'll find Joseph swore. And that's to give that solemn vow, to place your word upon it, as so to speak, your seal, your mark. And Israel bowed down upon his bed's head. That's the place where he was going to lay in it, and the head of it's that which is going to control it. So he would basically was fine with that agreement, the fact that he would be buried, not there in Egypt. Let's move on forward to Genesis chapter 48. Turn and return.